Hello everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Mallory and this is my first YouTube video. I come to you today with a bare face because today we are going to be talking about base makeup. So we're going to be talking about pre-makeup application, primers, foundations, concealers, and then we're going to talk a little bit about bronzers, contour colors, blushes, and highlight. And that's where our video is going to sort of conclude. I'm going to take my Gator Clips and pin back my hair. Some people like to use a hairband. I like these Gator Clips. Personally, I don't know, I like them. Okay, so to start off the video, I just wanted to talk a little bit about skin prep. I'm not going to go too much into which cleansers I use or anything like that in this video, but I always start off with a cleanser and I always follow up with a facial moisturizer afterwards. If you guys want a video on my skincare routine, please let me know, but for the time being, we're just going to keep all that information out of the video. And then once my face is freshly washed and moisturized, then I can move on to primer. For primer today, I just wanted to show you guys a few examples. With primer for your face, you can use it for a few different reasons. Could mean that you wanted to minimize the way that your pores look when you put on a base foundation or concealer. It could be because you have a breakout and you just want your makeup to go smoothly over the top and not emphasize like dryness or texture over those areas. Sometimes if you have a breakout, you're not going to be able to disguise it very well. It's still going to show. So because of that, there are a few different types of primer that you can use. The first one I'm just going to mention is like a spray primer. The first kind was the Smashbox, which I don't have on me right now. Otherwise, I would show you what it looked like. That one is super versatile because you can spray your face before you do foundation. You can spray it in between different like powdered like bronzers and blushes and highlights. Or you can just use it as a finishing spray to finish off all of the makeup and set it into place. Last thing I promise before we go and apply the foundation is how do we want to apply foundation? We have a few different options for applying foundation. The next kind of primer is a silicone-based primer. One of my favorites is the Benefit Professional. I have the mini version right here just to use as an example. And with the silicone ones, I do find that they are a little bit more pore minimizing, as when you put them over where your T-zone is, which is most of the time where all of your pores are heavily. So a lot of the time if I'm looking to minimize the pores in my T-zone, I tend to use a silicone-based primer. Now, a third option would be the more lotion kind. For example, the MAC Prep and Prime is a more lotion sunscreen texture. This one particularly has more of like a tackiness to it when you put it on, which is nice. And this I will just use all over. Doesn't matter if it's over a breakout or over my pores. It just has more of a tackiness to it, so your foundation will stick better. Those are the three examples for primers that I would give just your basic user who is new to makeup. Today I'm going to be using the Benefit Professional. This is one of my favorites. I just like to squeeze a dime-sized amount onto my fingers, swirl it around in my fingers, and I like to put the most product here on my nose, and then the rest of it I will put on my forehead and on my chin. I get breakouts easily on my chin, so I always smear a little bit of it there, and then around my nose I pat it on. And I put this on the T-zone here, all around the nostrils, and then I put it on the nose. Now that we are primed and ready to go, we need to talk about foundation, and this is going to be sort of the core conversation we're going to have in this video because foundation really does make or break your makeup. If my eyeshadow looks awesome and I put foundation on and it starts to break up or something, it just ruins the entire makeup look and it's so not cute. So we are going to talk a little bit about foundation. So there are multiple different kinds of foundation. I'm not going to touch on foundation matching because that is a whole nother video and I am horrible at matching foundation. So Don't come at me. I'm not going to talk about like matching your foundation to your skin. Not my thing. But we are going to talk about types of foundation. So one of the first types of foundations that you can try is a powdered foundation. Bare Minerals is known for having really, really good powdered foundations. I have used their foundations in the past as well. My preference is much more full coverage, and so I find that powder foundations tend to be light to medium coverage. But they do feel really light on the skin, and they feel very natural and look very natural too. So if that's something maybe you would be interested in, Bare Minerals is a really good brand that is safe to use on the skin. The next is BB creams and CC creams. One of my favorites is It Cosmetics. They have really, really good medium to full coverage CC creams, which is kind of rare with CC creams for whatever reason. But those are ones that I would recommend, and those are, again, they are full coverage, so they cover up your blemishes, but they don't feel full coverage. A lot of the time, the CC creams and the BB creams, I do apply with my fingers. Sometimes I'll do it with a brush, but they are just so like lightweight. I don't even bother using a beauty blender or anything like that with those. So that is a benefit. And then, of course, there is the liquid foundation, which is not everybody's forte. But liquid foundation does come with a variety of different types of like finishes and also types of like coverage. I prefer liquid foundation over any of the other kinds. I have tried powdered foundations. I own powdered and CC creams and liquid is just my go-to. I haven't always been that way though. I did have to build up interest into it in order to like it. So with foundations, just in general, you can have different finishes. You have a dewy finish, you have a satin finish, and you have a matte finish. Those are like the most common three. If there are other ones, let me know. I've never heard of her. Then, of course, with foundations, you have different coverages. You've got light coverage, medium coverage, and then full coverage. So when we're using those terms, that's kind of what we're talking about. We're talking about how well does it cover blemishes, acne, freckles, all that. For today's video, I'm going to be using the Too Faced Born This Way foundation. I personally consider this foundation to be a medium coverage, but buildable to full, which is what I may end up doing today. And this one is not my like perfect match either, so I may end up bronzing the face to try to get it to match, because I'm terrible at matching foundation. I just realized too after looking at the bottle that it says undetectable medium to full coverage foundation and it's oil free, so that's good. One thing I forgot to mention is all of these different types of foundations are going to react differently to everybody's skin. So for instance, I have very oily, very sensitive, very acne prone skin. Unfortunate, I know. But those are the three that I have to deal with. So certain foundations, like I know there are some YouTubers who say that this foundation is their highest coverage, like they love this to death, this is their tried and true. I like this when I don't have to wear it all day long. I only need it for beautiful satin skin for like a couple of hours, which is my goal today. It's not my go-to full coverage because I have oily skin and it breaks up in a few hours. So you know what I mean? So that's not going to be my like first perfect choice. The first option, and please don't cringe at my dirty tools, a beauty blender. This is the Morphe, I think it's the Highlight and Contour beauty blender, but this is one of my favorites. I also like the Eco Tools ones. So beauty blenders you will dampen with water or mist or whatever. I know I've seen people use setting spray too to make this damp to apply foundation. This is my go-to method because I don't find that it soaks up too much. You would think with a sponge it would, but I don't find that they do. I find that they apply heavy, full coverage foundations really, really well and smooth, and I'm able to get into all the crevices. So that is your first option for application. Your second option for makeup application is a Kabuki brush of some kind or a foundation brush. I personally prefer Kabuki brushes over any other kind of foundation brush. For example, this is the Morphe M439. It is a curved Kabuki brush. It's very, very dense, and I just cleaned these, so you're welcome. Yeah, super dense, and they're really nice to really buff in the foundation, which I love. And then the other option you have is a flat top Kabuki, and this is the Sigma F80. So it's similar to the Morphe one, but it is a flat top. So same thing applies. You're able to really buff it in. It's nice. The last and final option for applying foundation is actually a combination of two of them. A paddle brush. I don't personally have a paddle brush with me because I don't like this method, but it is a larger version of this brush, like way larger, like this big, and you use it to lay, and you would use that flat brush to move the foundation into areas that you want them, and then you would either use a Kabuki brush or a beauty blender to buff out the foundation and its placement. I know that a lot of people with mature skin, they prefer that method because they can actually see how much they are applying, whereas if I'm applying with my beauty blender, I'm either applying it to the back of my hand or I'm applying it directly onto the beauty blender, and I may not know how much that's going to cover. So you can control it a little bit with the paddle brushes. All right, we are going to apply foundation now. I'm going to grab my damp beauty blender and I'm going to pump on some of the foundation. And this is in the color Swan. And I always apply directly to the beauty blender, and I did just one pump, and I will go back in with more in a bit. What is that? Generally, one pump only takes care of half of my face. I wouldn't say I have a big face, but I don't have a small face. I also have a lot of blemishes and scarring that I like to cover up, so when I'm applying this foundation, I tend to really press into the skin with my blender. I always blend, whether it's the perfect match or not, a foundation, I always blend it slightly up onto my ear and up onto the hairline. And then I'm just taking like half a pump onto the forehead. I don't even think I needed to do this much on my forehead. But I'm doing it anyway. Of course, I blend into my hairline. What do you guys prefer? Do you prefer getting a shade too dark in your foundation? Or do you prefer a shade too light? And if you've never done it before, which one would you probably prefer? For me, I would much rather get a lighter foundation because I can bronze up my face if I feel. But then again, if I have too dark of a foundation, I can also just bronze up my neck, which a lot of the time ends up happening in the summer. All right, so we have finished applying the foundation, and now we are going to go into concealer, which really isn't that much of a big topic for makeup. Especially if you're new, a lot of people get scared when we start talking about concealer, or they just are not sure really how to use concealer. I like to think of it as there's two different ways to use concealer. You can use it, as its name sort of sounds, to conceal things. Conceal blemishes, conceal dark circles, all of the above. Conceal things. Or you can use concealer to brighten up the face, which is why I do both. I mostly use it for brightening up the face, but I know with different skin tones and everything, your skin is going to pose different challenges. I don't really have big under eyes right now, thank goodness. I don't have any big breakouts, so I don't really have anything huge to conceal. So because of that, that will determine what color of concealer you choose. There are really, as foundations, there are really full coverage concealers, there are medium coverage, and then there are light coverage. light coverage you would either use if you're just trying to brighten up the face, or if you're trying to if you're trying to both cover up something and brighten up the face, you would want to use more of a medium to full coverage, unless also you have fine lines under your eyes. It can cause creasing and look very like crepey. I hate that word, but crepey is a good word to use under your eyes. So for today, I'm going to be using a full coverage concealer to brighten. A little bit goes a long way. We're going to be using the Tarte Shape Tape Concealer in the color Fair. I have a few different shades for this. It's just my favorite. I don't find that it creases under my eyes, but I do know that I have a lot of friends who feel that it does. So we're just going to do the under eyes. You can do the under eyes in a few different ways. You can dot it like this, and that works just as easy. Or the way I like to do it, and you'll see a lot of YouTubers do it, is in a triangle like so, like that. This tends to be a little bit less like product, so you can serve. And that is what I will, this is really for like highlighting, because I'm going to be blending it up this way, because then it'll counteract where we put bronzer and blush, and it'll all just come together. You'll see, just wait. But this I would use particularly if I'm trying to cover up dark circles, because then you're focusing your placement here under the eye. I also like to put a little bit here on my chin, a little bit on the nose, and then a little bit up here on the forehead. Now, as far as blending out concealer, you have a few different ways of doing it. I'm going to be using the pointy end of my Beauty Blender, but you can also use a pointed Kabuki brush. This is also from Morphe, and you know, it helps to get in the crevices. Or you have the option to use a more fluffy brush. This is the Morphe R10 brush. I've used this before many times to just blend out the under eye. But again, for today's video, I'm going to be doing the pointed end of my Beauty Blender. And I also think it's worth mentioning that when you are finishing up your foundation and about to move on to concealer, I like to make sure that I've given my foundation ample time to set. A lot of them will feel tacky to the touch. This one, I don't believe is one of those ones. I think it feels pretty, yeah, it feels really dry. Not really dry, but dry. And so when I'm blending this concealer out, because I have an issue with around my nostrils with foundation breaking up, so I like to take the pointed end of my concealer and really bounce around my nostrils. And I know a lot of people have that issue. And then I'm just gonna blend up here, just in this general area. And the reason I put concealer up here is because it's one of the highest points of my face, and so I want to make sure it's highlighted up there. And a little bit on my nose. All right, the next step to really secure everything and close it off is going to be powder. You don't always have to powder your foundation and concealer. I find that they crease on me if I don't, because of my oily skin. If you have dry skin, you may not need to set them, but I will for all intents and purposes of this being my skin. You definitely don't want to wait too long to powder because it will crease quickly. So with that being said, I'm just going to go right into powdering, and we'll talk a little bit more about powder in a moment while I do that. I'm going to be using my Laura Mercier translucent setting powder. I believe this is the light version. Yeah, it just says translucent, but when I bought it, I did have to select light. And to apply this powder, I'm just going to be using the e.l.f. blush brush. Putting a little bit onto the brush here and just packing it under the eye so we don't get any creasing. I particularly like to focus this on areas I put concealer. I don't always worry so much about the foundation, but more so about the concealer. I have some expression lines on my forehead too, so. Okay. And I also crease right here really bad, as I said already. So I like to powder that. Okay, so now we're in the clear to talk a little bit about powder. Again, like I said, you don't need to powder every foundation that you wear. A lot of the time, if I'm just wearing like the Estee Lauder foundation, I won't powder my whole face. I will only powder the areas that I have concealer on. And it's also important to note that you would want to wait for this powder step. If you are doing a cream contour, you would want to do that before you put powder on. A big hint that I was given when I started doing makeup was always, always, always apply liquids with liquids and then powders and powders. So if you are doing more of a cream or liquid product, always do that first and then do your powders. So powder your face and then do your powder, bronzer and blush and highlight and all that. Unless you're doing a liquid version of any of those items, which for a more natural look, you may only want to do liquids and then you won't need to powder. Just something to think about. Right, so the next step is bronzer and contouring. I'm going to go ahead off camera and do my eyebrows because those will be a different video for a different time. We'll be right back. All right, so we are back and my eyebrows are done. They're not perfect, but they are done. I also primed my eyelids so that they would look the same color as my face because it was bothering me. We're going to talk about bronzer and contour. They are a little bit different, but you use the same kind of products. For all intensive purposes of the video, we are only going to be talking about powder because I have yet to play with cream, shockingly, so maybe I'll make a video about that at a later time. But for today, we are going to be using the Anastasia Beverly Hills. This is the light to medium contour kit. I highly recommend these if you are like new to bronzing and contouring and all that. They do look scary. Now this is messy. I use this a lot. This is the color that I use most of the time. I've hit pan. So it comes with 3 contour shades. It comes with a powder. So this is just like a highlight powder. This is a banana yellow toned, and then this is an actual highlighter, so it does have some shimmer in it. Obviously you can see I've hit pan, so you know that it is good. I'm going to be bronzing with this kit today, and we are going to be using this center shade here in the kit. For application of the bronzer, I'm going to be using a fluffy brush. This is from Eco Tools. This one doesn't have a name, it's just a big fluffy brush from Eco Tools. You're welcome. And I'm just going to go in here like so. And when I am bronzing, just a big rule of thumb, again, another tip that I learned that kind of changed the game for me with learning the difference. Bronzing is really to bring warmth back to your face. Obviously you can tell my face looks really pale and blah, you know, looks flat. So I want to bring the color back into my face so I don't look like one pale blank canvas. So when I'm bronzing, I like to be a little bit loose-handed with it. You don't have to be precise. Contouring will be a little bit more of a precision thing, but for bronzing, I'm just going to be a little loose-handed. So again, with bronzing, I was about to start, now we're going back. I like to do the cheeks, around the forehead, and then I also like to contour and bronze under my chin because I don't like the way my chin and neck looks a lot of the time, so you'll see me doing a little bit there. And then I also will bronze and contour my nose, and I'll show you why and talk a little bit about that in a minute. But for now, we're just going to be bronzing the cheeks. So you can see I'm just loose-handedly doing it. I'm getting this on the cheek, up over here on the temples, and if it helps for you to figure out where your cheekbone is, you can always, you can see my highest point is right here. You can tell it adds like so much more warmth into the face. And then I'm just gonna go up here, right up on the hairline. No biggie if you get it into your hair. I wash makeup out of my hair like on the daily. So just from that, you can see there is such a big difference between this side, which is the bronze side, to this side that's not bronze. It looks warmer, it looks more inviting, it looks more fruitful. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side. All right, so that is bronzer done. Now we are going to work on contour. So for contour today, we're gonna go back into the kit. I like to use this shade. Sometimes I'll bounce between the two end shades here, but this one is a little bit more warm toned, and I like it more when I have more cool undertones to my bronzers, and it's also the winter, so warm tone is more for summer. So I'm gonna stick to this one today. And to apply it, I'm going to be using just an angled, really dense brush. I like to use dense ones for my contour. This is the Firma 103. This is something I got in an Ipsy box, so I couldn't tell you how much it costs or where you can get it, but there you go. So for these, I'm just going to dab into it like that. You don't want to go in with like a heavy hand with these. And we are going to do the same areas, but we're going to be more precise than we did for the bronzer. So I'm going to angle it upward and sort of draw a line with my brush. You can tell where I put it there. Now I am going to blend. When you apply the color for your contour, you never want to go down from where you made that line. If you do, you can fix it up, so don't worry if you do. But I like to blend upward, so it's like a line and then it's up, you know, it explodes up. So just gonna go up like that, and then we're gonna just start buffing. Not a lot of people notice the difference with contouring, but I do. And I also don't do this with everyday makeup either. I will bronze all the time, but I don't contour every day. And again, I'm just gonna place that color up at the highest point of my forehead, which is here. Just to add a little bit of definition. You can see now where you laid the highlighter, the light shades, we're keeping those areas free of any bronzer and all that, because it's really going to create dimension on your face. And then a little bit underneath. Just real tight on the jaw. All right. So now we're going to be doing some contouring on my nose. I am not an expert at this. I'm actually not an expert at any of this, so just so you know. But I have tweaked this a little bit here and there, and the method I use works for me. So it may not work for you, but we're going to be using the same bronzer that we used originally, which is this color here in the contour kit. And I'm taking a small angled brush. This is the Morphe E62. And I'm going to just dab a little bit of that shade in onto my brush. And I'm going to trace a line right near the top of my nose. Not a lot of people do this, and I don't do this every day. But let me tell you why I do this. I find that this adds dimension back into the center of my face. Again, I know a lot of people that don't do this and don't like the look of it, but I just find when I am bronzing and contouring my whole face and I haven't done it to my nose, it just adds like something so nice. I'm taking the Morphe M504 brush and I'm just blending that out. This is my normal contour brush, but I've recently acquired that angled brush and I like it a lot. So that's that. That's all I'm gonna do. Now we are done with the contouring and the bronzing and we are going to move on to blush. For blush today, I'm going to be going in with this Tarte blush palette that I got last Christmas, and we're going to be going into 2 of these blushes here. Blush is pretty straightforward. A lot of the time there is shimmery blushes and then there's matte brushes. You can get sometimes some different luminosity to blushes, or you can just have them flat and just have that color. These ones don't have any, well actually, this one here has a little bit of like a sheen to it, but I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. Yeah, you can't even see it. So I'm going to be combining these 2 together as my blush today. And I'm going to be using my Sigma F40. This is the large angled contour brush for my blush. And I'm just going to go into both. And I'm going above where I placed my contour, and I'm going to sort of blend them together. And I always like to start on the outer side of my cheek and work my way inward. Or work my way to the apple of the cheek. I don't know how anyone cannot like blush. I love blush. I don't like any kind of shimmer in the fall and winter in my blushes. I am a matte blush kind of gal in this season. Now the last part of the base makeup routine is highlighter. I had said earlier if you wanted to do a liquid sort of highlight that you would want to do this all before the powders went on, but for today we are going to be using a powdered highlight. I don't ever use liquid highlights, so in the future you'll probably just see me always use a powdered highlight. Today we're going to be doing a Wet n Wild highlighter. This is in Blossom Glow. This is a stunning, stunning, stunning highlighter. It has like a pink iridescence to it. For application, I'm going to be using a Complex Culture highlighting brush. This is the All Over Highlighter powder brush that I got in an Ipsy. I am obsessed with this brush brand. I was only using Morphe brushes for highlight, but this thing has changed my highlight game for life. So I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to dab there. And just work it at the highest points of my face. Ooh, baby. So up here. And sometimes I bring it onto the actual cheek, but today I'm not going to do that just because I do have a little bit of texture here I don't want to emphasize. And then I'm just going to do the other side. And then I might, and I think I will, I'm gonna put it just above my eyebrows here and here. Sometimes I put it directly in the middle of my forehead, but today I'm just doing it on the above the eyebrows, up on the cheeks, and then I'm going to apply it down the center of my nose. And if you want, you could also use your fingers. So I just took a little bit on my ring finger and I'm just going to That really like packs a punch. All right, we are finished with the base. Now base for you could mean just foundation and concealer. For me, this is my base. This is my favorite part of my makeup routine. This is where I really truly feel beautiful and like ready to take on the day. So I'm going to go ahead off camera and finish the rest of my face, and I will be right back. All right, everybody, this is the final look. I'm feeling fresh, I'm feeling fabulous. I hope that you enjoyed the video and you found some of my tips and tricks helpful. If you wouldn't mind leaving a comment, letting me know what you thought. Let's have a conversation and chat. Any products that I have mentioned or used in today's video, I will have them all linked down below. I hope that you had a good time, and until next time, bye.